I don't hear an echo. No echo on my end. You know what I'm gonna do the intro video. Ready?
Get ready to take notes. For the next full hour, Hawaii's premier real estate leader, Lally, and Attilio will bring you the latest in real estate news and real-world strategy on how they can guarantee to sell your home at a price and deadline you agree to, or they'll buy it. Now, here are your hosts, Adrian and Attilio.
Welcome to the Team Lally Real Estate Show, home of the Guaranteed Sold program, or we'll buy it. If you have any questions, just give us a call at 799-9596 or check us out online at teamlally.com.
Hey everybody, this is Attilio, and today I want to talk to you about, it's that part of the show. What do we call that part of the show, Adrian? We'll put the. I'm gonna see here. I'll put the banner up. Attilio's random thoughts, and these are anything but random thoughts because these are things that I think about during the week that I want to contemplate, think about, take notes on, and then bring to our listeners. And so this is the part of the show where, most of the time it has nothing to do with real estate, but it's about you. Who's the most important person in your own universe? You. So what I want to talk about is I was listening to a podcast called Hidden Brain, the Shankar Vedantam. I have the perfect name, segueing a little bit, I have the perfect name to be an NPR host because I have a weird, unusual name, Attilio Leonardi. So I could be up there with Shankar Vedantam. Anyway, he's a really great podcast that he put together called Hidden Brain. And he's in fact, every once in a while they do a series on the workplace and then personal development. But the one that I was listening to today has to do with self-doubt. Adrian, what's been a situation for you personally where you've had self-doubt?
Well, as a former gymnast, there's a lot of psychology that goes into learning a new skill, going upside down, going backwards.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you have that self-doubt and you let yourself get into your brain too much, that's when you get injured.
Yeah. So
that was the first example that popped in my mind.
yeah, it was interesting because the psychologist even mentioned an example like Maya Angelou. I mean, she's considered one of the premier poets. She she has great wisdom, and she's also, I think she's written 11 books. And it was something interesting that he mentioned about Maya Angelou is that even after writing 11 books, we always have this fear, like, my next book is not going to be a hit, or I won't be able to write, or people won't be interested in anything that I have to say. And it was surprising to hear that. And a lot of times when people share their self-doubt, like maybe somebody that's a public speaker or a professor or somebody that's really good at what they do, people hearing that about this person, the self-doubt that they had, are surprised. Why?
Because they come across as very confident, knowledgeable, and impactful.
Yeah.
So,
in spite of what's going on.
Why would they think that about themselves?
Yeah. So what he goes on to talk about is where self-doubt can sometimes even, we have the self-doubt. There's nothing that's going to stop us from having that self-doubt. But it's how do we think about that self-doubt? Are we going to allow it to move into something that's tangible? Self-doubt is intangible, right? It's just up on our heads. And tangible is when we start self-sabotaging. For example, if you're out there at relationships, or maybe you're out there and you go to dating and you're like, I don't think I'm going to meet that good guy or that good gal. Well, that self-doubt manifests in your life, and who you end up meeting is not so good guy and not so good gal.
Well,
So
with our Keller Williams training in bold,
yeah,
what you focus on expands. So
hmm
whether that's positive or negative, that's
yeah.
what you're going to attract into your life.
Because you ever have those friends or relatives, or maybe it's you. If you don't, here's the deal: if you don't think it's you, most likely it probably is. But that person that's always just the negative Nelly, that Debbie Downer character on SNL,
Mm-hmm.
where she's like, you're sharing information with her, like, hey, my kids just got into that elementary school that I've been trying to get them in forever. And then Debbie Downer will come in like, well, I can't really have any children. And then you play the music. And you got to ask yourself, I mean, that's a verbalization of the internal self doubt in an external way. And when you are those kind of people, Adrian, what do you think? What's comes to your mind?
I'm thinking of a quick exit strategy. How do I
Yeah, you're
speak to
like,
them?
it's like you want to tell them, hey, I just need to use the restroom real quick. I'll be right back. But what you don't tell them is that you're going to the restroom at your house and you're not coming back. So self doubt leads to self sabotage. Really think about and pay attention to what are those thoughts going on in your mind. And what he said was keep in mind that a lot of times we're much more critical on ourselves than how we're being perceived by others or what others think of us. And so don't be your own worst critic. Think positive. I would say this: no matter what you're doing, if you're doing the best that you can, and Adrian, can you ask anybody to do more than the best that they can?
No.
No, it's like saying doing something 110%. Well, how can you do something 110% if you literally if your gas in your car's tank is 12 gallons, you cannot magically have another gallon in the gas tank. So when you use up 100% of the gas, that's it.
That's it.
So self-doubt, really think about what's going on in your brain.
Speaking of someone
Mhm.
who is full of confidence
Yes.
and information and just all sorts of valuable tips, we got Bradley Mariama with Allstate Insurance with his tip of the week.
Hey, Bradley,
Oh, how's it going? How's everything
always
going?
great. Well, I'm not sure. I've been doing this radio show for 10 years and I'm not sure if we're any good. No, I'm just kidding. That's
Oh,
We're on fire.
um,
We're on
We're on
fire,
fire.
Bradley. On
We're on
fire.
fire.
all right. So this one, um, we often talk about flood insurance on this radio show, and I wish I could reach out to all my customers, and I wish they all listen to the radio show, but unfortunately, a lot of people that live in non-flood zones, um, they don't feel that they need flood insurance. And this past week, I had multiple properties in St. Louis Heights, Aleva. So these are all mountain side, mountain got flooded out and no flood insurance. Unfortunately, there's going to be no coverage under your homeowner's insurance.
Oh
We
boy.
also found a lot of homes that have pools in Kahala. And some of these homes in Kahala are not in flood zones. And as the pool starts to fill up with water and overflow, a lot of these homes are inundated with water coming in through their sliding doors. And there's no coverage for that. So if you have a pool, um, and you will know best if when there's heavy rain and runoff. If there's any chance that you think your house could flood, call us up for a complimentary flood quote because it does happen, folks. Even if you're not in a flood area, homes do flood. So please call us for that. I also wanted to touch.
So, hey, Bradley, on your
Yeah, yeah.
the flood insurance for homes that are not in a flood zone, as far as the investment to protect your home, like generally speaking, like how much more is that going to be adding to your coverage per month or per year? What do you just give us a range?
On a rough estimate, 400 to 600 per year, but it's always best to call because
Mm-hmm.
there are some areas that are in flood zone B, and those will run a lot higher. Some examples of flood zone B would be Now, the chance of Lily flooding is very unlikely, but there are some rivers there, and FEMA does classify it as a flood zone B. Those will typically look like 2,000 to 2,400. So it's always best just to call in, but it's in a flood zone F, typically about four to 600.
So that's well worth it rather than risking this huge damage that these clients had experienced.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there was one incident, and it was a pipe from Border Water Supply that broke. Now, they initially said, call your insurance person, um, which I already know it's not going to be covered, but Border Water Supply is going to help this one customer out. I was terrified. They were calling me at 10 o'clock and sending me videos, and it looked like a waterfall coming through their front sidewalk down the hill. So they
Mm.
no, but Border Water Supply did reassure them that they're going to take care of it. We're still waiting response on whether they're going to cover the rent loss to the property. So once I
Yeah.
find that out, that could be my for the week next week.
And Bradley, remind our listeners, how you talk about it. What is, it's water coming into the house, but how it comes into the house is the difference.
Yeah. So flood insurance, I like to tell people groundwater. So once the water touches the ground, enters your house, that's flood insurance. If the water doesn't touch the ground and it enters your roof because the wind blew up the shingle, that would be your homeowner's hurricane. So
Hmm.
groundwater, how they classify these claims, that once the water touches the ground and enters tsunami, storm surge, overflowing riverways, that would be flooding.
Gotcha. And you were saying,
Oh yeah. So speaking of Florida water supply, this is another common phone call we've been getting. Um, does my home insurance cover me to give me some additional living expense costs if I have to be relocated because of the tainted water? So the answer is no. There is a clause in all the homeowners policies that exclude contaminated water relocation. So
mm,
that's something that a lot of these insurers have been picking up with their association,
gotcha.
with the Navy. So there are, I do see a lot of my insurance being placed at the Hollywood Hotel, but recently, I know it was Iroquois Point housing. I think they're still not um, assisting some of these homeowners.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the people that might be affected by all those fuel storage tanks up in Red Hill contaminating their water supply, that's not going to be covered under homeowners insurance.
Correct. And
Yeah.
I thought it was just Red Hill and Midland, but currently it's also affecting people out in Iroquois. So
Yeah.
yeah.
That's the old Navy housing over there.
Got it.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. So
Yeah.
people don't realize there are millions and millions of gallons of fuel that have been stored in these underground storage tanks. And these things might be as old as World War II, because, after Pearl Harbor got bombed, we didn't want to have the above ground. So the Navy is still working, or City of County of Honolulu, State of Hawaii, on cleaning that up. It's been a huge issue. And I think it recently came about because of all the heavy rains or something, but anyway, something to keep in the mind.
What is
And yeah,
yeah, give me a call. I can
yeah,
answer any other questions.
okay,
Out there.
yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Bradley.
Thank you, Betsy.
You can get a hold of Bradley and his team at 591-8016. You can find him on the resource page under teamlally.com with the experts we trust. So
Experts
speaking
we
of an
trust.
expert that we trust, we have Cassidy calling in with American Floor and Home.
Hi everyone.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. Okay, so for today's tip, I know a lot of people actually come into our showroom and they request for hard surface flooring because they just have crazy allergies and all of that. And we get it. Like carpet may not seem to be the best option for them, or they think it's not the best option. But when they come into our showroom and they want a hard surface, the cost definitely can be twice, 2 or 3 times more than carpet. So
Hmm.
what we would like to share is if you do have allergies, but you like and you love the softness of it, don't be afraid to look for a carpet like nylon or a pet perfect carpet because that will have anti-allergy. It'll help with your allergies throughout.
Hmm.
With the pollens, the dust. Well, we don't get a lot of pollens, but if you do, and nylon will actually help with the not permitting the mold growth. So that's usually what a lot of people are allergic to is when they start getting that mold or that mildew smell. It holds into the carpet. But nylon will actually release all of that and it prohibits any growth of that. So it's easy to clean also. So for people who do have allergies, don't be afraid of carpet. We still have options. Things have gotten better with new technology. So,
So, Chastity, how does the nylon carpet feel in comparison to the traditional carpet? Can you even tell the difference?
yes, you definitely can. Well, polyester has gotten better with steel, but nylon is softer, especially a nylon 6/6, which is another type of fiber, which is basically the best carpet fiber out there. Nylon 6/6. It feels softer underfoot. The nice thing about that too is that it holds holding the dust on the top, so it doesn't get into the fiber. It makes it easy
Hmm.
for you to clean vacuum, so you don't have anything going in between the fibers and coming up like a week later. So it's much nicer. It is a little bit more expensive in comparison to polyester or other types of carpet fibers, but it's worth the investment.
So,
Now, what if
would you use like a
uh,
mid-range then between you said the hard surfaces and the traditional carpet? So you said hard
Yeah.
surfaces is going to be double or triple, right?
Mhm. Yeah, just to give you an idea, on average, hard surface installation can go between $22 to $26 a square foot, materials and installation included. Versus a carpet on a mid-range, it can be $6 to $8 a square foot.
oh wow, big price difference.
Oh, that is
Yeah,
huge.
huge,
Yeah.
right? It's very big. And so with that price point, if you wanted to spend a little bit more, you can spend between $8 to $10 a square foot, and that includes your installation, your new cushion, your nylon carpet, and us removing the existing carpet and disposing it for you. So you think about $8 to $10 versus a $22 to $26. That's a very big difference, and
You
you
know,
don't
that,
have the
yeah.
softness underfoot.
Well, the key difference here that people don't realize in the mainland in Hawaii, we all take our shoes off.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very,
Mm.
it is a sensory type input that we have regarding our homes because we're not stomping around in our Air Jordans all over your brand new carpet. And
Yeah, that's a very good point. It's very
mhm,
true.
and stuff.
Yeah.
And I just want to remind people that for the holidays when you're visiting, please don't upgrade your slippers when you leave the party. You have to leave with the same slippers you came with.
Okay.
Yes. It's funny you bring that up about parties and stuff. A lot
Yeah,
of us here in Hawaii too, we sit and lay on our ground, on our carpet.
yeah,
So, we like to. For me, I even tell my family, like, "Oh, I sit on the ground, and my couch is my backrest." So
yes,
you want something soft, right? I don't want to be sitting on a hard surface flooring, and I want it to be soft, but still, if I'm laying on it, I don't want to have the all of the dust and everything come up when I tap on it or trust on it. So
yeah.
nylon would be the best way to go. It helps with a lot of allergies and the dust, easy maintenance. So I highly recommend that. So
Well,
please take a look at all of our collection.
you know why we laying on the ground is because we come to these family get-togethers and we eat the food and we have a kanak attack and we go into a what's called a
100%.
we go into a coma, so it's always good to be laying on a nice, clean carpet. We do that at my dad's too. You know, when we have big get-togethers, no need chairs. I always say, grab some carpet, pull up some carpet, have a seat.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly. That's how it is for my home too. So
yeah, and I think a lot of local homes. Um,
yes.
so our tip for this week is, if you go to the party, then you go with the 99 cents rubber slippers. You cannot leave with the Scots.
No, the tip is that there's other
Oh,
options
wait,
as
no,
far as the
flooring.
carpet, especially for people with allergies,
Yeah,
and it's
Yes.
very affordable. That is the tip.
Mhm.
So,
yeah.
Yeah.
I might be replacing mine because I have bad allergies and I have carpets up. I like the carpet feel upstairs. I have hardwood flooring downstairs, but I might go with the nylon upstairs.
there you go. The
Yeah,
allergy,
Yes. There we
yeah.
allergy
go.
friendly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Very
Excellent.
allergy friendly. And
Thank
a lot
you.
of people have allergies here in Hawaii, so
They do.
yeah,
Yeah,
got that for you.
Well, thank you,
yeah,
Well,
Bethany.
awesome.
Always
Thank you
yeah,
excellent
so much.
info.
Oh, thank you. Have a
yeah.
wonderful day, everyone.
All right.
And
So you can get a hold of Cassidy and her team by heading on over to the Experts We Trust tab on our websites.
and for all you people out there who have a lot of beer and alcohol, wine allergies coming up, but and I mean allergies, I mean we're partaking for the holidays. Just be aware we have our DUI checkpoints are out there. I've already seen them. Thank goodness I was not participating in a beer allergy, and I was just fine and went through it. Um, Adrian, who else? Do we have to say anybody else?
No, but we are going to take a break.
Okay.
And just stay with us. When we come back, we'll be talking with Brad Konishi. He is the president and CEO of HARPTA. We'll talk about what home sellers need to know about the HARPTA tax for real estate.
Stay with us.
Hey, it's Dita Holyfield with Royal Ride on Country 97.5. And most of you know, well, I'm pretty competitive. But nothing can beat what Adrian and Attilio shared with me the other day. Their client needed top dollar from his collections building penthouse in the heart of Kaka'ako in order to buy a home on the mainland. Well, Team Lally used all the tricks, including 3D interactive and drone videos, and sold his home at the highest price for a 2-bedroom in the building. Let me say that again. Adrian Lally and Attilio Leonardi of Team Lally Real Estate Group of Keller Williams Honolulu sold their client's home at the highest price for a 2-bedroom in the entire building. Team Lolly's home selling strategy and marketing concepts are so unique. They are selling homes up to $70,000 over asking. Higher the better. It's Team Lally. Call them at 799-9596. That's 799-9596. Write it down. Or visit online at teamlolly.com. Tell them Vita sent you.
Hi, I'm Barbara Corcoran. To sell your home on time for the most money, you need a sharp agent with a marketing strategy that creates the most demand. Bottom line, you need a partner willing to put their own money on the line for you. In Hawaii, I would hire Adrian Lally and Attilio Leonardo. Their marketing strategy is so effective that if your home doesn't sell on terms you agree to, Team Lally will buy it. Partner with the team I trust. Go online or call and get your home sold.
Hello, Hawaii. It's Colin Coward. Things may have changed in the sports world, but the games must go on. Look, I invest in real estate all over America, and right now, with the ultra-low interest rates everywhere, if you're serious about selling your home, you need to talk to my friends Adrian Lally and Attilio Leonardi of Team Lally, real estate group of Keller Williams Honolulu. Team Lolly's incredible marketing with 3D tours and its huge database of buyers has continued to sell homes quickly with multiple offers over the asking price. Adrian and Attilio continue to spend tens of thousands per month on marketing to attract hundreds of buyers every month using a unique app that communicates daily with over 3 million luxury home buyers around the United States. Adrian and Attilio guarantee to sell your home at a price and deadline you agree to, or they'll buy it themselves. Give Adrian and Attilio a call at 799-9596 or online at teamlally.com. That's teamlally.com. And start packing.
Hey, Buck, as a real estate investor, if you were going to buy or sell property in Hawaii, what's the first thing you'd do?
That's an easy call. Call Adrian Lally and Attilio Leonardi of Team Lally Real Estate Group of Keller Williams, Honolulu. They've always guaranteed to sell your home or they will buy it. I love that confidence and the marketing that backs it up.
You aren't alone. Sean Hannity, Colin Cowherd, Scotty B, and Barbara Corcoran from Shark Tank all agree with us. Team Lally are the agents we trust, and that trust is well-founded. They're selling homes for up to $70,000 over asking. What would you do with an extra $70,000?
How much time do you have? I mean, I've got a long list. Do yourself a favor. Check out all the reviews and see why thousands trust Team Lally. Google Team Lally, or if you want immediate answers, give them a call at 799 9596.
And don't forget to check out the Team Lally Real Estate Show right here every Saturday morning at 10. Get the best advice from Team Lally.
The Team Lally Real Estate Show continues.
Welcome back, and thanks for listening to the Team Lally Real Estate Show, home of the guaranteed sold program, or we'll buy it. I'm Adrian,
And I'm Attilio.
and I can't hear you, Attilio.
Can you hear me now?
There you are. And if you have any questions,
And I'm Attilio.
give us a call at 799-9596 or on the web at teamlally.com.
Our guest today has been a licensed CPA since 2001 and has operated a tax preparation firm specializing in assisting real estate agents and their clients. He now operates HARPTA LLC, a CPA firm started specifically to assist home sellers with all issues related to HARPTA and FERPTA.
Here today to talk more about HARPTA, Hawaii Real Property Tax Act, and the most common questions home sellers ask. Please welcome back our guest, President and CEO of HARPTA, Brad Konishi.
Hi. Thanks for having me back, Adrian and Attilio. Thanks.
Sure.
Really enjoyed it the last time, and thanks for having me back again.
Yes.
Well, you always have valuable insight and information to help navigate through this kind of complicated or confusing HARPTA tax.
Yeah.
It's complicated, it's confusing, and it's also painful because it's 7.25% of your gross sales price, which ends up being a lot of money for people.
Yeah. So let's talk about HARPTA and FARPTA. FARPTA, when people hear those words, they're thinking, oh, maybe I ate too much during the holiday buffets, and that's the sound that I make when I consume too much. But that's not what it is. It's an acronym. So let's start off with the basics. What does HARPTA as an acronym stand for?
Sure. HARPTA as an acronym stands for the Hawaii Real Property Tax Act, and it's a law that went into effect. I believe it was in the 90s as a result of Hawaii just wanting to make sure that they collect any taxes that are due from somebody who's selling a home.
Yeah, and I think.
So,
Go ahead, Adrian.
So Brad, I know that there's a lot of misconceptions about this HARPTA. What are the biggest questions or myths that you hear?
Oh yeah, I think some of the biggest myths really come down to who is subject to HARPTA and who isn't, and essentially what it is from a very, very general standpoint, everybody who sells real estate in Hawaii is actually subject to HARPTA. However, people who are residents, people who are considered to be Hawaii residents, are granted an immediate exclusion right at the beginning of the transaction, and it's something as simple as checking a box. A lot of the misconceptions to this are, am I a Hawaii resident or not? Some people, for example, we do a lot of business with military service.
Yeah.
Military service members are able to come to Hawaii and keep the state of residency of an entirely different state other than Hawaii. So, many times what we see for clients that we work with who are in the military is that, their state of legal residency might be something like a Texas or a Florida. And because of that, they are not paying state income taxes on their military income to the state of Hawaii. So, the state of Hawaii says, for people who fall into that category, they're not really considered residents for HARPTA purposes. And so as a result, military service member who does not consider Hawaii as their state of legal residency may be subject to HARPTA.
Oh, wow. So that would mean that they would have the withholding until the state determines if they owe any taxes.
Exactly. And you know what? I have another myth that is really important. I think to bring up at the very start is that HARPTA is not actually a tax, rather it's a withholding.
And the difference between the two is that a tax is an amount that a government entity takes and they keep forever, whereas withholding is an amount that the government takes and they hold on to until you can prove to them that your tax liability is less than what they're holding, and then at that point, the government entity will be obligated to give you a refund.
Now, Brad, with your firm, I know that you have some strategies to expedite the withholding return. Maybe you could talk about some of those strategies that you offer.
Oh, yeah, sure. We offer a bunch of services that are HARPTA related. Some occur before closing, and then some occur after closing, depending on the client and what their needs are. So before closing, what we do is we've done hundreds of these filings to get waivers for people, and what we usually do is the very first part is information and document gathering. So we gather all the information and documents that we need, and then we put together the filing. We file it, and then we file it in person, and that's that's one of the things that we do to kind of speed up the turnaround time from the state. And within 10 business days, the state will return to us an approved form that says, yes, this home seller is approved for a HARPTA waiver. Therefore, you can take it off of their settlement statement. So we inform escrow, and escrow will remove HARPTA, and the person won't have to pay HARPTA, which is one of the things that we do. Because we hand deliver and we hand pick up the withholding certificates, well, thankfully we do that now because the office is open again, the tax office is open again. We get a turnaround that's really, really quick. The second thing we do is for people who are filing for refunds afterwards, we do all of our filing electronically. And what we found is this really speeds up the refund process. It used to take, when we paper filed, it used to take, generally speaking, about maybe a month to 2 months for our clients to receive their refunds after we file. But now that we do it electronically, it's taking about 15 to 30 days typically.
So Brad, if somebody closes mid-year, let's say they close in June, and they don't qualify for the waiver, and they've got to pay the HARPTA. What does that process look like if you close mid-year?
Oh, that's a good point. For people who are closing mid-year, they actually have a couple of options. One of the options that we offer is the early tentative refund, which is an early refund that somebody can get by filing for it. But one of the things that's important to mention is it's not required. Somebody can get their refund by just skipping the early refund process and waiting until the next year to do their tax return and then file for their refund that way. But if we're using your example and somebody say closes in June, then what happens is they might be waiting until April, May, June of the following year to get their money back if they do it via their tax return. If they file for an early tentative refund, they may have their money back as soon as August or September.
Oh wow! Well, that's that's a much better option than waiting over a year.
Exactly. It's this time of year our business tends to slow down because people who are closing in December, rather than filing for the early refund, they'll just wait until say February of next year, do a Hawaii income tax return, and get the refund back then. So this time of year, our business for the refunds at least slows down quite a bit.
Yeah, because you're getting close to the end of the year.
Yeah, close to the end of the year, which is kind of nice because then it allows some of my employees to take vacations. So it's a nice way to cycle rather than the tax cycle that we were on before, which is everybody worked themselves, just worked themselves really hard February, March, April, and then try to recover the last half of April.
Well, I want to give a big shout out to the realtors because we know we have a lot of realtors that listen to our radio show and that they should definitely be writing your website down. And I think that's a really easy website to remember because you bought the domain name, harpta.com. Because I find that the clients get a little excited when the first time they're finding out about the HARPTA is when they're in escrow.
And I know as realtors, we're so organized and we plan well ahead that we tell our clients everything they need to know. No, sometimes we don't. So it's good to be able to bring you into the conversation so you can kind of, give them some options and explain to them what it means. And Brad, what we like to say in our business is don't be the source, be the source of the source. Adrian, what does that mean?
So just know where to find the answers and where to find the expert. And I want to say that Brad is definitely expert on HARPTA.
Yeah.
So
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I was at happy hour with Brad the other day. He showed me his HARPTA tattoo on his shoulder. It says this big heart. It says I heart HARPTA. No, he's not. You're not that dedicated, right? You don't have a HARPTA tattoo.
You know what? Maybe now I will. Maybe now that
Okay.
you suggested it.
Yeah. So, but go ahead, Adrian.
I was going to say, so Brad, maybe we can talk a little bit about FERPTA as well.
Sure.
So what is that?
Okay, so we were talking acronyms a little bit earlier. So FERPTA is actually the federal equivalent of HARPTA. FERPTA stands for the Federal Real Property Tax Act, and FERPTA is a little bit different. HARPTA is 7.25% of the gross sales price. Pretty much a given. There are ways to kind of get a waiver, get an exemption, and there are ways to get waivers and exemptions for FERPTA as well. FERPTA is a much more punishing type of withholding, though. FERPTA can possibly be as low as 0%, but generally speaking, it's either 15 or 20% for almost every single transaction that we've seen. So the only time we see it go to 0% is if you have sales that are less than $300,000 and the buyer agrees to occupy the home for a certain amount of time. I mean, $300,000 in a Hawaii real estate market, you don't see sales that low. So because of that, FERPTA, at least from our standpoint, we see almost always 15 or 20%. FERPTA is handled a little bit differently, however. HARPTA, what happens is if HARPTA is withheld, escrow will withhold that amount during the closing process and then send it into the state. For the IRS, it works essentially the same way, but the turnaround time is a lot different. I mentioned a little bit about people getting refunds or waivers sometimes within 10 business days or refunds within 15 to 30 days. However, for the IRS, the IRS being a much larger institution, it works a lot slower. And so people can apply for a FERPTA waiver prior to closing. There's a form called an 8288B, but it takes, generally speaking, about 90 days when the IRS is up and running at their full capacity. And for the last year, they've been struggling with COVID shortages. So there's been a bit of a logjam at the IRS.
So Brad, with the FERPTA, the main people that would be affected by that is if you're a non-US citizen, correct?
There you go. Thanks for bringing that up because it's a real important distinction. Whereas HARPTA is only for people who are not Hawaii residents. FERPTA applies to people who are considered to be foreign persons. That's the language of the IRS, and that's people who are not U.S. citizens. So U.S. citizens, regardless of where you reside, always have an exemption from FERPTA. But FERPTA does apply towards foreign persons, doesn't apply to U.S. citizens, and it also does not apply to non-resident aliens, green card holders.
So Brad, my understanding is if somehow this FERPTA is missed, what happens? Who gets caught holding the bag for this FERPTA?
That's a good question. Yeah, who is responsible for the collection of FERPTA and also HARPTA? Essentially, it's the buyer. The buyer is responsible for collecting, the FERPTA and the HARPTA when it's necessary to collect it. And it's interesting. I can remember the last time I was on this show. Attilio asked that question, like, why is the buyer responsible? And I said somebody has to be responsible for this. And Attilio had said the buyer is responsible because the buyer owns the property now, and so it's easier to get at them than it might be to get at the seller, and that's absolutely true as well.
You know why? Because the state of Hawaii and the federal government, they know where you live.
That's right.
They got your address.
They're coming to collect their money.
So, and they're much more thorough than the mafia. What was that? That's what took out Capone was taxes. They thought it was like, liquor, illegal liquor production or murdering people. No, the IRS agent got them because they always say they get their man or woman.
That's right. It's funny. Speaking about that, just a real quick anecdote is the tax court is really an unusual institution in that in most criminal courts, in almost all criminal courts, the burden of proof is on the prosecutor. So in other words, if the prosecutor can't prove that the defendant actually did it, the prosecutor loses. So the burden of proof is on the prosecutor in most criminal cases. But in tax court, it's switched. The burden of proof is actually on the taxpayer. And so if the taxpayer can't prove to the tax court that their stance is proper and was done correctly, then the taxpayer loses. So the taxpayer actually has the harder job in tax court.
Now, what happens if there's not enough proceeds? Because some people get pretty slim shady. If Eminem was selling a house, he would be slim shady. There's no profit. Some people are like barely breaking even. Then what happens?
Oh, that's a great question. So here's what happens handled a little bit differently with HARPTA than it is for HARPTA. For HARPTA, the way it happened is there's kind of I guess you could call it a pressure release valve, if anything. The state actually has opens up the possibility for somebody getting a HARPTA reduction. If the person is in the situation where they're trying to sell a home, they got an offer on the table, but the offer is such that, when you take into consideration the payoff of the lender, paying off all of the expenses that go along with selling your house, as well as the HARPTA layered on top of all of that, if the person would be required to bring cash to escrow just to close, the state actually has their relief valve where you can file for a HARPTA reduction. And so what happens is you can file such that HARPTA gets reduced to the point where hopefully you don't need to bring any cash to closing. And so hopefully you can get a HARPTA reduced to the point where somebody can afford to sell. And so that is one of the options that some people have available to them. We're seeing it less and less in this type of market because the prices are so high.
So Brad, is this something that your firm helps people with as they're going through the escrow process or the selling process?
Yes, it is. This is something we definitely have done. In fact, we were just earlier this week. I was doing our count to see where we were this year, and so we were pretty close to $6 million in waivers for this year, and another little over $6 million in refunds. So this is something that is really the defining part of our business.
Helping people save money and help them get their money back quicker.
Oh yeah. And for a lot of these people who are selling, they want their money back quicker because the reason why they're selling their home in Hawaii is because they want to use the proceeds to buy a home on the mainland. Exactly. And so if they had that extra $50,000 or $60,000, that or however much that they can get back from HARPTA, if they had that in their pocket rather than sitting in the state of Hawaii's bank somewhere, they'd be able to purchase a much bigger, better home for themselves and their family. So it's the work that we do, we think translates into a better lives for people who are selling homes here.
So Brad, on that note, where you're selling and buying, how does HARPTA work if you are an investor and you're selling your investment property and you're doing the 1031 exchange to purchase the next property? How does HARPTA come into that?
That's a great one. We're talking about a HARPTA exemption, and There are ways to get immediate exemptions, such as if you're a resident, but there's also an immediate exemption for people who are doing 1031 exchanges. A 1031 exchange falls under a classification of transactions called non-recognition provision. Fancy name. Essentially, what that is a term that's used by the IRS, and of which 1031 transactions, 1031 exchanges are a part of. Essentially, what it is you're not going to recognize the gain by doing a 1031. Therefore, you can just check a box with the state of Hawaii, and you get an immediate exclusion of HARPTA. You don't even need to apply for it. So for people who are doing 1031 exchanges, and I should clarify, clean 1031 exchanges. In other words, they're not pulling cash out of the transaction. They're sticking all of their cash into the next property. They can get a claims that Hawaii is their one true home, and usually it requires some kind of evidence. Either you own a home here, or you have a lot of family here, or it could be a number of things, but there should be direct evidence that shows that yes, even though you're saying you consider Hawaii to be your one true home, here's the evidence that you really do. The other way to establish residency is via physical presence, to be physically present in the state of Hawaii. So, there are numbers that are thrown out, like if you're here for the calendar year at least 200 days, then you're in what they call a safe harbor. That doesn't automatically make you a resident, but that makes it a lot easier for you to prove that you're a resident. So there are a number of ways to establish residency in the state of Hawaii. And I could probably talk about this subject for the next 20 minutes, but I don't think people want to hear me go into that level of detail. So
I would say just go to your website, go to harpta.com, and you have a lot of great resources there.
Yeah, no, it's a great website.
With videos and answers to all sorts of questions. And then book a consult if you think that you could use Brad's help. Would be my
Yeah.
suggestion.
So if you're a Hawaii resident and you're present here, you also need to be mentally present because if you do a lot of daydreaming and you're not really present, you should get charged a HARPTA. No, no, no. We're coming down to
The end of the
the
show.
end, end of the show. If there was any one last question we haven't asked, what would it be? Or have we covered it all?
Let's see. Oh, what are my fees? Maybe Vietnam particular
Yeah,
that
there
an
you
important
go.
question you think for your listeners?
Yeah, no,
Okay,
it's
so
well worth the investment.
yeah,
Yeah, go ahead.
for people who are for people who hire us to get either a waiver or reduction. So these are things you can do before going before you close. Our cost is $900 to file for a waiver reduction. If you hire us to file for a refund afterwards, our cost is $800 if it's a single filer. If it's more than one filer, say a husband and wife, we charge half price for each successive filer. So for husband and wife, it's going to be $1,200. It's $800 for one spouse, and then $400 for the next. And so, yeah, that's our fee. We have plenty of experience, and we'd be glad, even if you just want to talk about HARPTA and FERPTA, we'd be glad to discuss your situation with you.
Well, thank you
Thanks so
so
much for
much,
being on the
Brad.
show.
This was awesome.
Thank you.
All
Thank
right.
you.
All right. Well, thank you for listening, and thank you to our sponsors:
Jody and Derek of Pacific Rim Mortgage,
Bradley with Allstate Insurance,
Kenji with Taylor Pulse Home Inspectors,
John with Kilauea Pest Control,
Duke with Hawaii Pacific Property Management,
Kyle with Impact Wealth Solutions,
Robinson with Fine Line Paintworks,
James with Kaji Cleaning,
and Chastity with American Floor and Home.
Kate with Skytech Construction, Roofing, and Solar.
Broderick with Zero West Hawaii. If you want to get a hold of any of our sponsors, just go to teamlally.com.
We also want to give a big thank you to Leah Rodriguez, our producer here in the studio.
Chee-hoo.
Make sure to tune in next week. We'll have one of our awesome guests talking about something that'll change your life.
Forever. This is the Team Lally Real Estate Show, home of the guaranteed
Soul program. If we can't sell your home at the agreed upon price in your time frame, we'll have it bought for cash. Thanks and aloha.
And aloha.
And then now, there's going to be some Christmas music.
May all your days be merry and bright and light and peaceful and full of joy in the seasons that we share with our loved ones. Pick up the ones that need a hand today and say Merry Christmas to you. May all your days be merry and bright and light and peaceful and full of joy in this season. So full of joy. Wear a funny sweater on a Monday, have an eggnog Sunday, share a candy cane at the beach. We could lay out a Rice Krispie treat, sing a carol on the sidewalk, yeah, yeah. Make a gingerbread house or pajamas, glass of cocoa. Put sprinkles on your best friend's loco moco. Go surfing with the Santa hat on. And bring Lally wishes you a Merry Christmas.
The preceding program was sponsored by Team Lally.